Okay, so now we're adjourning this meeting and moving on to the regular meeting. So now it's the regular meeting. We're going to start the regular meeting. A regular meeting of the Marlin Independent School District will be held June 19th, beginning at 5 p.m. in the Marlin Middle School Library, 678 Success Drive, Marlin. A live stream recording of the meeting will be available for viewing on the district's YouTube channel. The subjects to be discussed or considered or upon which any formal action may be taken are listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown on the meeting notice. Unless removed from the consent agenda, items identified within the consent agenda will be acted on at one time. Okay, and in calling the meeting to order, we'll have roll call once again. Ms. Ehlers? Present. All right, and Mr. Johnson is absent, and Ms. Terry present. And we've had the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence, and now do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments on these agenda items.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Okay, and now we'll move to item 6, the closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074, deliberation of personnel matters. So, okay.
Perfect. And I do see him coming in right now.
He lives up Dallas way now. His brother, oh no, that's Bobby, he posted it, and then, yeah. Yeah, so he sent me this random message, and I think. There you go.
We're back in session at 6:02. And next we'll go to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, members of the board. Tonight we'll begin with the BOM 2022 update by Mr. Jesse Bustamante.
Good afternoon, Board President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson. District leadership team continues to have meaningful conversations with all of our stakeholders and vendors just to ensure a successful project delivery. Our next Bond Advisory Committee meeting will be Monday, August 7th at 6:30 following our board meeting. Few updates for Legion Field. Crews have finally removed all of the rubber asphalt that was found during construction. They have started compacting the track base, and they've also started digging the drain around the football field. The Legion Field concession and fieldhouse renovation project, bids were received and opened on June the 13th. A discussion was held with our engineer and architect on June the 14th, and all bids were rejected due to budget and cost. The district leadership team is in the process of coming up with a solution for that project, just exploring different routes to finish that project. Legion Field demolition project, the vendor was selected June 5th. We did have a pre-demolition meeting today, so we're excited about that project. We anticipate that project being completed by August of 2023. Some general updates, the crews have started working on the new chute that will be located on the home side, and then they started working on the inside and the outside curb for the track. You will see on the next couple of pictures the condition of our track. As you can see the picture on the left, the inside curb does have a lot of wear and tear, so the crews are going to replace that. You can see that they started digging out the drain. A lot of rain. Unfortunately, rain has not been our friend. We have had a lot of days that has been muddy and rainy. Another nice picture, as you can see, all of the asphalt has been removed, and then now they're going to start compacting that dirt so that way they can start finishing the track installation. And then this is a real nice picture. A lot of dirt work, but as soon as the dirt work is done, you will start seeing the track and the turf come together. So definitely, this is the nicest picture that we have of Legion Field right now. So definitely excited about this. I know it's just dirt, but after this will come the track and the turf. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Next we have Lone Star Governance Goal Progress Measures 4.1 and 4.2 by Dr. Stacy Parker Knight.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson. Our foundational courses do play a vital role in preparing students with the essential skills and knowledge needed for success in college and their future careers. So our key strategic measure 4.1 states that our students will demonstrate college level English proficiency, and we do measure that by looking at our college prep English course enrollment as well as our college entrance exams for English. So I am happy to announce that 100% of our 38 seniors did meet the college career military readiness criteria for college level English proficiency. 35 of those students met it by taking and passing the college prep English course. 3 students met that criteria by successfully passing the reading TSIA examination. So we did finish out exceeding our target for that goal. So some of our immediate needs is that we will just continue to support our students in college readiness to support TSIA to success. That is the overall goal for students to be deemed college ready. That is a medium impact, and we will continue to just support funding and looking for opportunities to offer preparatory materials and testing opportunities for our students. Some takeaways, just again to ensure that myself, our team, and our staff understand the college career military readiness criteria, that we do continue to monitor graduation plans for each senior, and that we complete the CCMR graduation tracker to track our progress of each senior for the successful course completion. And then we did do include a graphic that shows all of the ways that we do meet or we can meet the CCMR criteria. For our key strategic measure 4.2, it's the same as 4.1, except this will state that students will demonstrate college level mathematics proficiency, and we measure that through the college prep math course enrollment as well as their college entrance exam success. So again, I am proud to announce that 100% of our 38 seniors did meet the CCMR criteria for college level mathematics proficiency, 37 of them through the successful taking and passing of the college prep math course, and 1 for the successful completion and passing of the TSIA 2 mathematics test. So again, we did exceed our goal in that area. Same as English, we will just continue again to support their readiness for TSIA 2 success in mathematics. And the same takeaways and just understanding the criteria to meet the CCMR standards as set forth by TEA. Are there any questions? So for Vision 2025, our industry-based certifications can pave the way to career readiness. These certifications provide our students with real-world skills, hand-on experiences, and recognized credentials that align with specific industries. So key strategic measure 4.3 states that our students will demonstrate career readiness, and that indicator is through our industry-based certifications. So currently, our industry-based certification programs and pathways that are available to our students are through 3 of our main pathways: business and finance with our entrepreneurship and small business IBC, agriculture with our animal science IBC certification, and public service, which is our cosmetology operator license. At this time, although we do offer those opportunities, no seniors pursued an IBC because they met the criteria for CCMR through their college and career readiness through their CPE and CPM courses. Some of our immediate needs is then just to increase participation in the industry-based certifications. This is a medium need, and that's going to be through increased communication, and then increase our pathway and IBC opportunities for students based on current industry trends. And we are working with some collaborative partnerships at the moment to continue to analyze what's growing in our area to all continue to offer students the latest and greatest. Some key takeaways in our path forward is to begin to hold graduation plan meetings to inform students and families of the industry-based certification option, as well as have a fall CTE showcase to highlight our current pathways and our industry-based certification options as well. And this is all in alignment with TEA's current IBC list. There were some questions posed. for us. And so the first question is, do all of these pathways allow for students to take the 3 to 4 courses to meet the new career standards to earn an IBC for accountability? The answer is yes. All of our pathways do follow the TEA-approved statewide CTE programs of study guidelines, and those guidelines do call for them to have at least 4 courses, beginning with the principles, working its way up to the practicums. The question was B, if not, which pathways do we need to add courses, and how can the board help in this matter? So right now, we don't need to add any courses to our existing pathways offered, but we always are welcome to take the board's feedback for any industry trends or any recommendations or suggestions of things to look for as we start to enter into collaboratives and work on strengthening those programs or enhancing it in the future. How many of these pathways have sunsetting IBCs? Well, TEA did provide us with the 22-24 IBC list to update our pathways to begin to use those in 2022. So we didn't have any sunsetting because we're operating off of the new approved list for TEA. I did list the 3 actual tests that are on that list that corresponds with the ones that I shared. So the correct test name is Fundamentals of Animal Science Certification, and that is a link to the actual site that's authorized by TEA for the test. The next one is the Cosmetology Operator's License, and that's the standard one that's been for years through the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. When they meet the hours, can actually go before the board to get certified to do hair. And then Entrepreneurship and Small Business offered through Centerport. And so TEA has deemed these entities, along with many others, for various pathways of, if you go through your courses and you take this, you will have an industry-based certification in that area. And then lastly, should the target date of September be earlier, since we are starting school earlier, to not interrupt class schedule? Well, our counselors meet with our parents and students in the spring semester prior to an incoming freshman's year to talk about the pathway so that they choose the pathway. This, the freshmen are also allowed to adjust their pathway once going into their sophomore year. If I I thought I liked animals, I really want to do hair, they can do that. Holding a meeting in September will just be to highlight IBC options, because our students have been focused on academics and meeting it through the college prep way. We just want to highlight that IBC is an additional option for them, and this will have no impact on class schedules, but will actually allow our freshmen some time to reflect on their initial choices, and also our students in those advanced courses to just begin to consider trying out for an IBC to have that extra niche that, move as they transition from K-12 to their next phase in life. Are there any additional questions?
Another one I have would be, can they not do the IBC and this other test and count towards?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, they can do both, and it's up to them. The IBCs are not mandatory. It's just an option to get it. But what we're trying to do with the collaboratives and increasing the awareness is just to say, hey, you may just be taking cosmetology to meet the CTE criteria for your diploma, but you also can consider that you can actually get a certification to do something work-wise if you choose. So it's just really opening up the options. We did push the academia piece, because we do want to highlight that, but a lot of our kids, all of our kids pretty much are in the CTE courses, and so now it's just informing them that, hey, you can get a certificate in animal certification, maybe go work for a vet's office or something. It's just about awareness, but they could definitely do it too. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Vision 2025, KSM 6.1 and 6.3 by Mr. Adam Lejeune.
President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson, good evening. As more and more of our educational products go online, It's important for us to ensure that the students and staff are able to access and deliver those digital products to the students. KSM 6.1 relates to the Wi-Fi internet uptime. We measure that by dividing the number of outages in minutes by the number of minutes in the school year, and we track that on the Wi-Fi outage tracker. This semester, we had far fewer minutes that Wi-Fi was not accessible. We did do a repair on the network in February, and then after spring break, some fine tuning, and then we did not have any more outages after that. So our total number of outages are 170 plus 45, 84,000 minutes in a academic year. So we had a 99.997% absolute uptime, and we are currently exceeding our goal of 95%. Immediate needs, the internet or Wi-Fi, we are always expanding, and we have plans to improve our Wi-Fi infrastructure even further for the coming school year. So we went for E-rate for a new Wi-Fi project to bolster our existing, and unfortunately supply chain project times are still very high. I'm working with our vendor to ensure that we can complete this program for delivery by the end of the summer, but I just wanted the board to be aware that there are outstanding issues that we may not have complete control over. The next strategic measure is appropriate usage of technology in the classroom. We measure this by doing walkthroughs and teacher surveys and interviews. I wanted to address this. There was a question about this topic, so I thought it would be prudent to go more into it. We started this process back whenever the Vision 2025 was first put in place, with identifying areas that we could improve with technology. And our goal is to gently but purposefully shift the climate towards using technology comfortably and fluently in the classroom. It is a process. It's not set here to punish anyone. Our walkthrough data did not impact on anyone's teacher assessments that the principals did, and our goal is not to assign extra work or extra responsibilities, but to have it flow through a nice process so that we end up with fluent and comfortable teachers. So some of our initiatives, some were started last year, the sorting of comfort and fluency levels, which I'll explain a little bit more in a second. We've been releasing quarterly tech tip newsletters on topics that we find teachers maybe are not as comfortable with. They need a little bit more help. Those started in February of this year. We did find technology influencers at each campus who would be able to answer questions for staff if they had something. Voluntary one-to-one intervention with interested staff. We increased the amount of classroom apps for teachers to use that were approved in their teaching. And we held group trainings for educational technology in the classroom. All of these initiatives were primarily led by Lindy Mitchell, who was the technology coach that we hired earlier. There was a question about some approved classroom apps. We have a lot. There's a lot of free apps that were vetted and that were added to our ClassLink, Quizlet, Edpuzzle, Screencastify, Kahoot, BrainPop, Prodigy, BookNook, Canva, Padlet, Flipgrid. These were all made available. Some teachers who were interested got special one-on-one training. Some of these the teachers brought to us and said, can we use this? And then it's just a brief look at the terms of service and their licensing, and then we added it into the program. So on the tiered intervention sorting for teachers, we wanted to start with something that could give this effort some structure. So we started with an anonymous survey delivered at the end of last school year to find out kind of what percentage of teachers were comfortable using technology and what kind of teachers had comfort using technology in their personal life, and then what kind of PD they were looking for. So we asked things like, how much do you check social media? How much do you post on social media? How often do you check your email when you're not at work? Are you the type of person who always wants the latest and the greatest? If you can figure out if you have an issue, can you solve that issue on your own? Do you often write down steps when you learn how to do a new process? Do you prefer to read from a screen or from paper? And then for future PD preferences, are there any apps or techniques that you would like to get training on, and how to integrate those into your work habits, and then also how to integrate them into your teaching habits. And we offered various trainings throughout the year. The way that we sorted teachers, again, this was primarily anonymous to figure out what generally they wanted, but we did have specific communications with staff. We did talk to them, interview them, and through walkthrough data, we were able to sort our staff into 3 levels. Level 1 was our intervention level. They were not comfortable with technology in their personal or their private life. They were approached one-to-one. They weren't called out in any classroom or anything like that. And they were given personal support just through a little more hands-on approach, the loving feeling of being able to use something new or helping them to use the thing that they were given. Level 2 was pretty comfortable with technology, and they were fluent with the required technology, such as doing their grade book, checking email, working with their required curriculum. They received no special intervention, and that was the majority of the staff. And then level 3 were the ones who were always wanting the latest and greatest. They were very comfortable with technology. They were very fluent with technology. They were the ones that we placed with our 22nd century materials, and then were approached to be on-campus tech influencers. And if they chose to, were able to give demos of how things worked to anybody that asked or any teachers there. Kind of a more one-on-one to interact with some of that technology, or just to be the person to say, hey, my email doesn't work, what should I do? And then help give them, guide them in the right direction. So our observation data, we did walkthroughs from about the middle of November after we created the walkthrough instrument until May. And we had most of our teachers that were using technology were at least projecting a presentation on the screen. So if they did more than that, then we would sort them into these different categories. But you see 25% using their projecting to their screen. If they did other items, then we basically would assume that they were also doing that. So we kind of went with the most important strategy that they were using, or they were put into multiple strategies. Some of those categories, self-paced learning would be students themselves using Apex, Ingenuity, iReady, STEM Scopes, MyPath, Carnegie Math, any of those items where they would be working by themselves without a teacher standing in front of them or delivering instruction. Devices used without observation of the application. So as you guys know, walkthroughs are not the entire period. So if we observed them using their Chromebook, but maybe not exactly using it right at that time, it was open, or the teacher was having them get them out, then we recorded that as a appropriate usage because they were using them. Google Workspace are the suite of tools that are like Microsoft Office, so that's Google Slides, Google Docs. If a teacher was presenting a document, not necessarily a presentation, then we counted that as using Google Workspace. If the students were working with slides and making projects, if the students were typing into their own Google documents, then we consider that appropriate usage. Google Classroom is a tool that uses Google Slides and Google Docs. You can assign student work from a teacher page, and then students can work in Google Workspace to complete those assignments and turn them in. We do have quite a few curriculum apps like Eureka, Amplify, PhD Science, Renaissance, iReady, Carnegie, Elevation, STEM Scopes, Odell. Most of these are considered high-quality instructional materials from the TEA's initiative to have high-quality instructional materials for digital classrooms or just using them digitally in the classroom. And then other tech usage, if a student was using a calculator, if the teacher was using a document camera, if there was not necessarily instruction going on, but students were on a computer-based assessment or benchmark, then we consider that other tech usage. I did think it was important to make a clarification. The no usage portion of that graph doesn't mean that it was inappropriate. Again, we are gently guiding our teachers to be more fluent and more comfortable using their technology in more innovative ways in their classroom. So if students were doing a non-computer-based test, or there was direct teaching that was happening without using a computer, if there were hands-on activities or paper-based activities that were not set on a computer, then we counted those as no usage, not inappropriate usage. Our goal of greater than 70% is to encourage the innovative use of technology in the classroom, not punish whenever someone is using a traditional technique. But we do understand that where technology is being used, it should be appropriately used, which is how we came up with our categories. So the total, we had no usage of technology at about 26%, appropriate usage of technology at about 74%. We marked it green because we would like to see more usage in the classroom that is not just projecting their screen, but using some of those creative apps or creatively using their computers. Really, our immediate needs are just for staff to encourage full use of Google Workspace for completing work, staff completing work, and then also innovating by using creative apps, checking for understanding with online games, things of that nature. Those are things that we are presenting in and that we hope that staff incorporate into their daily routine. Were there any other questions?
Adam, is this Chromebook only used for parents at home, or can they use a laptop?
All of the apps that we have can be used from any device, whether it's a cell phone, a laptop, or a Chromebook, or an iPad. So they can use them from home.
Do they have to bring them up here and let you set them up for them?
No, if they have their own device at home, then they can log in just like they would here at school and use any of the items that we have. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, members of the board. As academics drive a school district, districts drive the future of our students. At this time, I would also like to recognize our Marlin High School administrative team, Ms. McDavid and Ms. Sanders. Definitely the only leadership team in the building tonight, so thank you, high school leadership team, for being here. Your future is bright, Marlin High at the high school. So, academic concerns. Due to our recent talks with students, parents, and stakeholders, we had a few concerns brought to us over the past 2.5, 3 weeks. Grade reporting for year-long courses, admin teaching courses clearly only at the high school because the middle school enjoyed the admin teaching of the courses. Confusion of grading, various rubrics for online courses. Despite the national teacher shortage, we wanted more certified teachers at the high school and just the quality of instruction from those teachers. A question posed was, how will grade reporting and rubrics for online courses be clarified to keep every stakeholder on the same page throughout the year? So in August, my plan of working with Ms. Gardier and our two administrators is to hold meetings at a minimum of once every 6 weeks to let parents know not only about their status, it's going to be communicated heavily that the final grade earned in the course will be the grade on the transcript. So we're going to work with the center throughout the year to determine what can we put in place as a placeholder or as a letter grade or a number grade, but parents have to know that final report. So any audit being done by myself or TEA can be passed. If you earn an 86, it has to reflect an 86 on that final average. And we're going to have sign-in sheets with parent meetings. It's important that based on the feedback for this year, we over-communicate and we have enough meetings so parents and students are fully informed. So a solution that we're looking into and we have not decided upon is the Texas Virtual School Network. This kind of picked up steam during the timeframe of COVID. It's all about access that is equitable across the state. Every district might not have great online teachers, but what we know is where they are phenomenal, they can teach across the state, and these are state certified instructors. So TEA administers this, everyone's certified, it meets all national standards, and of course there's an online course catalog. And looking at what we're considering, we have those highlighted right there in gold. So everything from English 1 as freshmen on up to government and economics for seniors. So here are a few questions. What does replace Apex and or Edgenuity? We're still going to utilize all three platforms. We're just going to have to determine very quickly what is the best for our students based off our network as well as their capabilities. Now, all three have been approved by TEA for state credit courses. For local credit, as in things like typing, we handle that internally, but for state credit, these are all approved by TEA. The next thing, we're talking about financial responsibility. This is going to be at a cost to the district. So we're estimating around $300 to $350 per course, per student, per semester. So it's about $18,000 to $24,500 per course, per semester. So for the year, anywhere between $36,000 and $49,000, which is lower than the Marlin ISD rate for a first-year teacher. So we're just going to, once again, we're not doing things because of cost, we're doing things for what is in the best interest of the student in the district. So Rachel, make sure you get some of this in the paper, please. Are there any questions? Dr. Parker.
Good evening again, Board President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Henson. In a world of endless possibilities, our greatest resource is education. Proper funding ensures fair distribution of resources, modern learning experiences, and opportunities for all. So for our May financial report, we start with our general fund. For the month of May, I do want to just highlight that the total expenditures represent not only just actual cost out, but also, and I'll talk about in a minute, some of those final budget cleanups. That's a standard process across all districts across the state. I boxed at the end that we are still to the good overall for our budget. The goal is, again, to always have a balanced budget at the end. We have received the majority of our revenue. We do still anticipate receiving our revenue in the month of June to close out our fiscal year. In areas where you see a little more, we again base our initial budgets on projections given, but that can always work in our favor where we end up getting more revenue than what was initially anticipated, and that happened this year in that case. For our food service, as you can see, too, we are still close to receiving 100% of our funding, still have just a little bit more to receive, and we do anticipate that in June. And we are to the good with our expenditures for the month of May in food services, and with the additional revenue coming in, we'll be looking for, again, a balanced budget in our food service. Interest in sinking, as you see, not a lot of activity because this, again, the revenue that comes in is residual of past debt collections that's being made. So that's hit or miss. There's no anticipated or budgeted revenue there. So it just highlights to you what we've received year to date. And then we've had no debt payments. Those are not set to begin until spring of '24, and so we are still to the good here. For our construction account, you will see various transactions as Mr. Bustamante talked about earlier and showed you the wonderful pictures. We are starting to make progress, and that costs money. So you will see in May just funds that we move over into our account to support our transactions, and we did have some cost in the month of May towards our facility and construction. In your board book, you will be able to see this a little more clearly, but this highlights all of our accounts. We do have some money in our investment reports. We keep a portion of our local maintenance funds in a tax pool still, and that continues to draw a significant amount of interest towards our general fund. So this month, we did earn a little over $12,972.27 for 1 month. In our tax pool construction account, you will see our money in for the month of May and the interest drawn on that account. You will also see our accounts in our Cadence Bank. We have our local maintenance account, a construction account, money market account. And we set up the various accounts so that we definitely make sure that we don't commingle funds, and we keep it separate from what's our local maintenance from our tax collections to what we are doing in transactions in regards to our bond, and you will be able to see all of the cash on hand that we have in those accounts.
And Board President Johnson, members of the board, one thing to note on that last slide is that we have earned over $100,000 of interest in the past month. So I definitely want to give credit to Dr. Parker in working with our investment team, a financial advisor. So $100,000 in interest is coming to the Maryland Independent School District for the betterment of these BOM projects at no cost to our taxpayers.
Thank you, Dr. Henson. And in your board book, you will see here, I have in the presentation just a snippet of the checks that went out for the month of May. You definitely have the complete list in your board packet to reference. Are there any questions? Amending a school budget involved making revisions to the financial plan that outlines how funds are allocated and spent. There could be several reasons for an amendment, but our primary reason is improved efficiency. We want to make sure we always optimize our resource allocation as we analyze our spending patterns and we identify areas where resources are needed. So in our general fund, what you see before you is just like I said, a standard end of the fiscal year accounting process where we anticipated what we were going to spend in the beginning, where we landed, and how we budgeted the accounts. So there's important to note that where you see decrease, there was no decrease to services or decrease to operations, just that now that we are nearing the end of our fiscal year and we're done spending, we adjusted funds in the appropriate accounts as we spent and saw the need. I do want to note here too that if you see at the very end, we did not have to take any money from the fund balance, which means that we were operating our budget as we proposed to you at the beginning of the year and without overspending and making good use of our funds to optimize our services. For the food service fund, I do want to note that in the food service, we did have to take from the fund balance, but that was largely attributed to the rising food costs that was not anticipated at the beginning of the fiscal year. We've made adjustments accordingly as I present to you momentarily our projected budget for the upcoming year. Debt service, we did not have, like I said, any debt payments. This is an accounting process. There's revenue that we have to journal in and journal out, so it's net neutral. There was no money lost, and like I said, we did not make any debt payments for the year. So I did receive some additional questions that I did want to address. Are the budget amendments for 22-23 or 23-24? These amendments are for the 22-23 school year to balance out the budget at the end of the fiscal year. For Function 11, which I will like to note, Function 11 are primarily for instructional services, are those salaries that are covered by the grants just for the paraprofessionals and interventionists. Our Function 11 salaries are teachers and paraprofessionals, so we've not yet employed interventionists. I just highlighted that during the public meeting with the title funds, because title funds will support that as well. The other Function 11 salaries are from our main general 199 budget. And so 199 Function 11, those are the salaries of our teachers as well. The other question, why are we decreasing plant maintenance? Well, as I stated, the budget amendment, again, is for the end of the 22-23 fiscal year. As an accounting balance and process, these funds are just adjusted across the function to balance the budget, and the plant maintenance budget has not been decreased to restrict any purchases, or you probably would see Vince sitting here tonight to talk to you all. I'm not taking away any of his funding, and it will be sufficiently budgeted for the 23-24 school year. And then why is debt services increasing? Since as of May, only 58.83% of that budgeted item has been used. So I did want to note that we have what's called a financial accountability system resource guide put out by TEA. They did update that in 2022, and it talks a lot about how we use our budget fund codes and what we use them for. They did make a change change that now our short-term debt, like our copier leases to run our copies, is now a Function 71 expense, which is a debt service expense. And so that was not initially the rule when we presented and passed our budget at the beginning of the year. So we had to make budget amendments and adjustments to correctly code those purchases, that service, because we do lease out with our various copiers throughout the district. And so that is why you saw that those expenditures, because they were reallocated there. Are there any additional questions? Here, again, just to stress, proper funding does, again, ensure our fair distribution of resources and opportunities for all. Tonight, for consent, I am going to be presenting the 23-24 budget for your approval. I do want to highlight, again, that now we have a full 6 weeks worth of attendance data, and six weeks got a little rough. Students missed a little bit of school, and so our average did drop slightly to 824.8. Again, this is significantly higher than it was in the previous year, and so we are still tracking well with our attendance, but we will continue to work to ensure that we promote daily attendance for all of our students.
Board President Johnson, members of the board, our ADA is actually above our district projection and the state projection.
Yes.
So I think it's incumbent to just give accolades to our faculty and staff, for our parents and for our students to have an ADA that is above what the state projected for us to be. So I'm very excited. So that means more money is coming to the district on settle up.
Yes. And so as you will see, that's a perfect segue to the slide, as I shared with you in our last budget workshop, that we do anticipate with all of our funding sources increased revenue for the upcoming year, slightly over $12 million. So this is a breakdown, again, of historically, as you can see here, what we've received from the various funds, and I will break those down momentarily. But of course, across all of our revenue sources, we are projected to receive, again, 12.4, slightly over, close to $12.5 million in revenue. And again, this does rely heavily on students coming to school daily, and so we are tracking that this is our anticipated revenue at this time. I did include in your package just a highlight again of the budgeted items for our general revenue fund, which again, you will see that we put our most of our money with instruction, as that is the priority of our district. And you will see how we balanced out all of the expenses to balance our budget to have expenses projected to not exceed our anticipated revenue. This again gives you just a deeper look and a breakdown across various objects such as payroll, contracted services, supplies. We do budget across again to see a little bit deeper into each function, how that money is allocated. The same is done for our child nutrition budget. We are anticipating revenue of $798,708 from the various sources. And then our expenditures, again, for food services, primarily food, and some of the small operational needs of that department to balance out to the $798,708 for a balanced budget. Again, just showing you across the various objects. And finally, because debt services is new, and we now have passed our bonds, so we have debt, we are anticipating receiving $2,027,554 in our tax collections. And again, at the last budget workshop, Dr. Henson did mention, and I still want to mention the note that we do anticipate a large amount of the first year of that bond debt to be covered by our solar panel forms that I have not seen yet, but I'm going to go try to find it. Okay, it's somewhere, but they said they paying us. Okay, y'all with me? Yes, and so we do have our first debt payment coming in 2024 of $2,027,554, and so we show a balanced budget there. And again, all of that is just strictly for our debt payment back. So some of the questions that were posed is one, what is the difference between the two types of local revenues and the three types of state revenues in general terms? And so the difference between the two types of local revenue basically is like taxes versus everything else. So the primary local revenue source is the tax collections that we do receive from the Falls County tax assessor's office. And then that's our local revenue, that's our property taxes, which is why that's shown by itself, because we really want to keep track on that. You've heard myself, you've heard Dr. Henson talk about the values of our property, and we're always meeting and talking with our attorneys and looking at the comptroller's office appraisals, and that's a whole thing. So we keep that separated so we can always track what's coming in there. For our state, and again, the other is just like any athletic revenue, interest that we receive, any other local funding sources, if we fundraise or if the interest that we are collecting on the money that we are investing, that's all considered other local. Our state revenue, first you have the ASF payments, and again, that is based, as Dr. Henson talked about, on our average daily attendance. They have a payment rate called a distribution rate. It's set by the Commissioner of Education, and it's based on actual funds available for expenditure. So it's a whole technical state formula. We can go to a training on it one day, but ASF payments are referred to as per capita payments, and that's separated from the main foundation payment, which is the 5812. And this is the primary source of state funding for school districts. And if you look on TA's website, that is public information if you want to look at our summary of finance. You can Google summary of finance on TA's website, put in Marlin, and it will break down every single factor that goes into this. And we also work in partnership with Region 12. We have a whole spreadsheet where we thoroughly look at our attendance projections, historical, and then try to make those best projections of how much money the state will send us to offset what we get locally to appropriately fund our programming for our students. And then the 5831, that's non-cash revenue, and that's just basically an accounting function that they do, and it's a part of the GASB handbook of what we have to do, and that deals more with on-behalf payments, and that's a payroll function about teacher retirement being paid for active members. And then I was asked in general terms, what's the difference between functions codes 11, 12, 21, 23, and 41. So function codes they refer to the what and who for. So we have to first determine, okay, we want to buy some paper. Okay, what is that paper for? Oh, it was for students and tutoring. That's function 11. 11 is for instructional goods and services. So we want a consultant to come out and train in the classroom on how to mix solutions in science. Instruction, 11. 12 deals primarily with reading materials. That's more likely libraries. So when we had libraries, 12 was heavily used as instructional reading materials in a library and digital media and things of that nature. 21 is instructional leadership. So that's a little bit different from 11. These are your instructional coaches, like your deans. So if they need materials to deliver a training, or if they go to a training themselves, that expenditure is coded with a 21. So again, the 21, the function is the what and the who for. 23, that's campus leadership, principals, AP. So anything for their training, if they're buying a computer paper or paper for the printer in their office, it's still paper, but that's the difference between paper for an 11, paper for a 21, paper for a 23. It's still paper, but it's who it's for that determines what function it falls under. And then 41 is administrative costs that comes out of central office administration. And these are things such as contracts for business services. So like PEEM services, we have to pay for Ms. Kathy to input PEEMs. We have to pay for our business services and our work with Region 12, and those things will be coded a 41. And so that's kind of a short term of how the different functions are. When I referred to the FASRAG, that financial accountability, it breaks down all of the functions and what the definition of each function, and that is also public information on TEA's website if you just want to do handy reading. As I look at all purchases, I keep the FASRAG open because it's very detailed. And then the last question is local and state revenues are not to 100%. When do we typically receive the remainder of those funds? So I addressed that earlier, June. And so tonight's report is May 2023. And so we do monitor and communicate with our local and state agencies just to ensure that the checks are on the way. How can we have over 100% of revenue federal? So again, we can at times collect more than what's anticipated and budgeted. So it's a common practice, and like it's possible, like the better the outcomes, such as improved attendance, will generate more revenue. How many months of operations do we have available in our fund balance? So based on our highest month of expenditures, which it kind of was like around $1 million, that's on a really high month, we have approximately 4 months of operations in our fund balance. If you look at the investment page and add that up, we have a little like 4.7 million, so that covers about 4 months. And then are the new requirements from the 88th legislative session, like CPR, AED training to the 7th to 12th graders, safety and security, advanced math classes, et cetera, been addressed in this budget. So the annual budget has taken definitely into consideration our legislative mandates. And we want to also always make sure Marlin ISD will be in compliance with any changes that carry associated costs. We also apply, a lot of times TA will come out with grant opportunities such as the silent panic alarm and the safety and security grant, and we do go out for those so that we can always support additional costs to supplement what we receive in our general funds. We're also on a lookout right now because there's talks of a special legislative session to be called that is centered solely around education around September, so we're keeping our eye out. Our Region 12 partners are, and our budget right now efficiency will help us prepare for any legislative changes that will have an impact on school finance. So we've budgeted conservatively based on our needs, on our anticipated costs, and we are also aware that some of these mandates will be unfunded, and we monitor and operate appropriately. So I feel comfortable where we are in our budget and as it relates to the mandates that are out right now, and then those that may come down the line, we will convene and see how that impacts and adjust accordingly. Are there any additional questions? Okay. So there is a saying that when you look good, you feel good. And everyone that comes up to any type of facility or home or neighborhood, one of the first things you notice is a well-manicured lawn and nice shrubbery. And we want that for Marlin ISD as we begin to work on our construction projects. Mr. Marjota did ask that we update and replace some lawnmowers that are efficient to carry out the routine maintenance in our grounds. And so I am asking tonight for approval to purchase 2. And although the purchase amount is just slightly under our threshold, that is the initial quote. And I wanted to allow for any adjustments in price between the time of approval and actually being able to procure procure and obtain that. But we are asking for a Gravely Pro Turn 372 for the maintenance department, and it's just some product features for this, but this will allow them to navigate and keep our lawn and our grounds looking nice. Any questions? Thank you.
On June 19, 1865, footsteps were taken in Galveston, Texas. On June 19, 2023, footsteps are about to be taken in Marlin, Texas. In Marlin ISD, we have a strategic plan. And guiding statement number 1 says that all students will read on grade level by the end of the 2nd grade. But in order to have 2nd grade proficiency, you have to have it in 1st grade, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, and early childhood. I'd like to bring up Dr. Larry Lewis from Footsteps to Brilliance.
Good evening. Board Member Johnson, Board President Johnson, Board Member Ayler, Board Member Terry, Dr. Henson, Dr. Wilson, this illustrious team, thank you so much for having me this evening. I also want to recognize my beautiful wife who came with me today from Denton, Texas, who is the Associate Superintendent of Schools in Grand Prairie ISD. So thank you for coming with me. Today, this one's here. This here? Okay. Today we're going to talk about Marlin ISD, a strategic partnership for kindergarten readiness and academic excellence. Board, you have been given some information in your packet, but what we'd like to do is just go through the highlights of what this partnership would look like. I just want to make sure you understand that Footsteps to Brilliance is totally aligned with your mission statement that Marlin ISD will prepare students with the academic and life skills necessary to ensure their potential turns into performance. And the most important piece of that is every student should be reading on or above grade level at every grade level. To the extent that they're not, then they are prospective participants in the poverty cycle of school to prison pipeline. And the further and further they get behind in reading, the more likely they are to drop out. So in his Vision 2025 that he spoke of, Dr. Henson and his team has outlined that everything about the vision is students first. Students will read on or above grade level by the end of 2nd grade. So in order to do that, there's really some things that have to happen from 0 to 5 or 0 to 3 and 4 before they get to the schoolhouse door in Marlin. And we're going to talk about that. The other piece that it talks about is individualized instruction. Footsteps to Brilliance not only allows for individualized instruction, it also allows for parents to be their students' first teacher at home before they get to the schoolhouse door. And then the students' expectations of themselves. As an elementary teacher, as a high school teacher, elementary principal, and superintendent, the one thing that you see that causes students to have less confidence in themselves than anything is their inability to read. All kinds of things happen when they can't read. If you ask a high school kid to read in class and they can't read, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some behavior disturbance so they can what? Be dismissed from the class so they don't have to read. And so the other piece talks about community collaboration. Community collaboration is essential to student success. Footsteps to Brilliance Foundation is all about community, and we'll explain that as well. And last but not least, that championship mentality. I'm gonna tell you, I'm from a family of 14 kids, right? I was not crazy about reading growing up. I really wasn't. I was into sports, but my mom and grandmother, they were just adamant about us being readers. So we did all kinds of Bible drills at church. They brought home the encyclopedias that other people threw away so that we have access to literacy. And the only whoopings we got, really, was for not doing well in school and not doing the readings and kinds of things at home. So when you can read, it gives you a different level of championship mentality. And so why is this important in Marlin? Because right now, the last data that you have about kindergarten readiness in Marlin ISD from the 2021-2022 school year said that 29% of Marlin ISD students were kindergarten ready. That was actually a 21% drop from the previous year. So, what does Footsteps to Brilliance do? I'm not going to go through all of these because we don't have that kind of time, but I just wanted to make sure that there are so many features of Footsteps to Brilliance, but it's important that we understand the overview. It guarantees, and I say guarantee, it guarantees that Marlin students are going to come to pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and kindergarten ready to learn. They're going to come ready to learn, and they're going to be reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Everything about Footsteps to Brilliance is research-based. For example, we have what we call karaoke nursery rhymes in our software. The research says if a kid leaves kindergarten knowing 8 to 10 nursery rhymes that they can recite, there's a 98% probability that they will be reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. We also know that between 0 and 5, 90% of the critical brain mass is developed. If a kid doesn't get any experience and exposure before they come to Marlin by pre-K 3, they've missed 3 years. And what we know, if kids enter behind, 44% of those kids never catch up. And guess where they end up? In your high schools. And our high schools around the country, trying to get them graduated at the end. And if we had Footsteps of Brilliance at the beginning, they would have what? They would have been ready to graduate. Who has access to Footsteps to Brilliance in Marlin? Every student in your attendance zone from 0 to 3rd grade has access to Footsteps to Brilliance. Marlin ISD plays for pre-K 3, Footsteps to Brilliance plays from 0 to 3rd grade for all students not enrolled in your attendance zone. That's our skin in the game. We put money in before we ask you. We also pay for years 4 and 5, not only for your students, but also those same students in the community. So we're really only asking you to pay for 3 years, and we're paying for 4 and 5. And so it's a 5-year commitment. So we know that the ESSER dollars are over in September 2024. You will have Footsteps to Brilliance into the end of the 2027-2028 school year. So when Commissioner Morath says, okay, what did you do with all the dollars that we gave to the school system during the pandemic? What do you have that's sustainable? You will be able to say, we have a 0 to 3rd grade literacy model that we will have until 2027, 2028. We used our money efficiently and we used it wisely to ensure that our neediest students will come to school ready. Okay? Who uses it? Everybody, I said. Then we do 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week. That could be in a classroom, that could be in a center, or that could be at home. We get additional 1/3% time on task on evenings, weekends, and holidays because students have access to Footsteps to Brilliance 24/7. And once they download it at school, they don't need Wi-Fi at home. Once they get back to a Wi-Fi area, they upload that data to us. And we send it to you by district, by campus, by classroom, by individual student, and by community. And say you have a Boys and Girls Club, a YMCA, or a daycare center, and they want all their students to be a separate entity under Marlin ISD. We will build a school for whatever the name of that daycare center is, so you will know how their kids are doing beyond the community. Also, you know, we're aligned to the English Learner Proficiency Standards, the ELPS, right? We're aligned to those. Those kids have to take TELPAS from grades 2 through 12. But the critical piece is that that English, those English learner proficiency standards prepares the students for the TEL-PAS test because they have to, a test, part of the test is receptive, that's listening and reading, and part of it is expressive, that is writing and speaking. In Footsteps to Brilliance, you have all of those. When a kid reads a book, they can push the microphone and it will read the story to them. Then they can read it themselves. So that prepares them for the TEL-PAS. Then we also have a microphone on every page that's read that they can read into the microphone for a fluency exam. So they can hear themselves read in preparation for the TEL-PAS assignment. And then we have a writing component that has a doodle pad, create a book, write your own book from every story, and then journal writing. So before they get to the TEL-PAS assessment, they would have had all 4 components and be ready for the TEL-PAS test. Well, Dr. Lewis, some of those kids in 4th, 5th, and 6th on 2nd, 3rd, and 1st grade level, they have access to Footsteps to Brilliance as well for no extra cost. So the 600 licenses that are in the package, you will run through those very quickly because you may have 10 people in one family with a license because we don't want parents using the license of their kids. So we want everybody in the household to have their own license. So if you end up with 12,000 licenses in Marlin, you only pay for 600. If you have if you double in size over the next 2 years, you don't pay any more money for increased enrollment. It is based on today, regardless of how much the school grows. So what do we guarantee in Marlin? You have in your strategic plan dashboard that a certain percentage of Marlin ISD students will reach the target percent of students reading on track in pre-K. Footsteps to Brilliance can help with that. You also have that we will ensure that Marlin ISD reaches the target of percent of students reading on or above grade level in grade 1. We will help with that. You also have, we will ensure all Marlin teachers are teaching explicit phonics components in grades pre-K and first. Footsteps to Brilliance trains everyone. You train nobody. We train the superintendent, the principals, all administrators, teachers, daycare center workers. We train all the parents. That's our responsibility. Not only that, we do classroom coaching, we do everything necessary to make sure that Footsteps to Brilliance is successful in Marlin ISD. Okay? And so I don't want to keep going. I will just stop and see if you have questions. And I think there were some questions, right? Okay, what would the distribution of the licenses through a 5-year term? Let me tell you how that works. We would get with your technology director, and we will upload every kid in your school system by class. So we will upload every class, and if new students come, we just add them to the class management system, right? And so teachers and everyone else will be uploaded as well, all administrators. And different levels will have different access points to the data, right? So now, in the parents of all the students that are uploaded from the district will have access to their student data. Only their students' data and no one else. For everybody else in the community, we will have a URL that says www.footstepstobrilliance.com/MarlinISD. They will register that way. And so that's how everybody has access to the licenses. And every year, it's the same thing. Here's the other thing. You never pay for updates. So right now, you will have our flagship Footsteps to Brilliance. I can read for pre-K. I can read one for kinder. And the Summer Climb summer school. You don't have to pay for summer school. It's all, the software is already included. You will also have access to what we call Teacher Tip Tuesday. Every teacher assistant, every Tuesday will get a teacher tip that's aligned to the curriculum. Every Tuesday. And then every Friday, we have Family Fridays. Every parent that signs up for Footsteps to Brilliance, every Friday, they will receive an email from Footsteps to Brilliance of things that they can do with their kids over the weekend. Because we want to make sure that we establish parents as the child's first teacher. So everything within Footsteps to Brilliance is incumbent upon the company to deliver to ensure your success. Will we receive credit for any unused licenses? We've never had any unused licenses. As a matter of fact, we have more than, in most school districts, double the use of licenses, and is no additional cost for that. But we've never had a situation where we had a school district that didn't use all the licenses. On the Footsteps to Brilliance website, there's data from a variety of schools across the country, including Texas. At least one Texas school district showed their improved STAR scores, but I did not notice anything showing if there's an improvement in TELPAS scores. Okay, TELPAS, there is no direct correlation between Footsteps to Brilliance and TELPAS. And really, for no curriculum for that matter, really, because TELPAS is an assessment given by the state about English language acquisition to determine if a kid has learned English well enough to leave the emergent learner and then go into Tier 1 instruction in English, which is the regular classroom. And so what we try to do in Footsteps to Brilliance is through that English-Spanish toggle switch, the mic for fluency, the writing, is prepare all students for that TELPAS assessment. Is there a direct correlation between us and the passing? No. But did we have a supplemental piece in it? Yes. For example, you have Amplify as your core. We are going to sit down with all of your instructional team and our instructional team, and we're going to do an alignment for Amplify in Footsteps to Brilliance. That's the custom things that we do. Now, any custom item that we do for Marlin, we turn around and make it available to all of our other partners. And any custom thing that we do for another school district, anywhere in the United States of America, we turn around and make that available to Marlin ISD as well. So any of the SharePoints or any of the outstanding things that other districts are doing, we make that available to Marlin, and then we'll take some of the great things that Marlin is doing and make that available to all of our other school districts. The key word here is service and support. There is no company in the world that would give you better support, service and support than Footsteps to Brilliance. And I'm going to be your person right along with my implementer from Footsteps to Brilliance. If they're here, I'm here. And that's what I promise all of my partners. And I think Dr. Henson will tell you that my track record is pretty good. I hope it is. But we work on it every day. And I just want to say this before I say thank you, and hopefully we're going to be great partners together. I am amazed and excited for what you all have done over the last 3 years. I am a Dr. Henson fan, and he knows it. Have been ever since he was principal at North Forest High School in North Forest ISD. But what he has done with the leadership of this board over the last 3 years to get you all to the B rating that you have on your way to an A rating and setting the standard for what can be done when you have the right leadership between the board and the superintendent is absolutely incredible. And I am going to be awfully excited to be a part of that if and when you vote this partnership into being. Thank you so very much, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll conclude with District of Innovation with Ms. Marquita McCullum.
Good evening once again, Presiding Officer Terry, Board President Johnson, and Board Member Ehlers, and Dr. Henson. If a task is once begun, never leave it till it's done. We started the exploratory process of the District of Innovation process in January, and here we are in June, just pending board approval of our finalized local innovation plan. As a reminder, here's our flow chart that has showed you how our process has gone this entire time, and you see those check marks, and that leads us to the board approves the plan by 2/3 majority vote, and if that happens, then Marlin ISD will be a district of innovation, designated as a district of innovation. The plan would then be, a link to the plan will be sent to the commissioner so that it's published on their website, and it'll be prominently placed on our website continuously. So, all we have left to do is turn it over to the board. It's on you at this time. The only change that would need to be made would be timeline updates to reflect what took place today. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Board President Johnson, members of the board, before I conclude the superintendent's report, I would like to thank all of the district leadership team for a phenomenal 22-23 school year. I want to thank Dr. Wilson for her leadership and support. It's been like no other. And then, of course, to our board of managers, I want to thank you all as well for just overly supporting the school district. I know that this meeting is a long one because it's the last one of the year, but I cannot thank you all enough for just supporting all of us and where we're headed as a school district. So this concludes my final superintendent's report for the 22-23 school year.
Ms. Vice President, I approve the consent agenda.
Okay, for the motion, do I hear a second? Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, raise your hand, please. Okay, thank you. It's approved, no objections, and so the consent agenda is approved. Do we need to do anything, Dr. Henson, on those first items? I mean, we've done it?
We've done it up, and I just adjourned.
Okay, good, I'm gonna use that gavel one more time. Okay, the meeting's adjourned.
Last one of the year.
Thank you, Ms. Terry.
Sure.
We're off for like 6 weeks. Well, I'm saying, off for board meetings,
Thank you.
and we'll be back on, at least get a month off.
Yeah, I need to talk to you.
Couple of signatures from you. This is the contract from the co-op, special ed. Say, life skills teacher.
That's him? Is that him? Is that him?
No, this is for special ed.